Welcome everyone to Color Commentary. We are your pauper commentators, Michael Petchick and Adrian Gonzalez. How's it going, Adrian?
Oh, good.
Yeah, as people can no doubt hear, I am still working with the built-in mic on my laptop. So,
And let's talk about that for a second. Mike has been in Boston for like 2 weeks,
yeah.
and they still haven't delivered his stuff.
So the issue is we live very close to a highway on-ramp, which means we had to get not just a permit, but a federal permit because it's an interstate.
Mike is sleeping on an air mattress because of this.
To be fair, it's a really nice air mattress, but yes. I do just want my stuff at this point. So
yeah, I can just see you in your hovel with your little candle lit for warmth, eating cold beans out of a tin can.
To be fair, that is the one thing I will complain about. We have like loaner pots and pans from my parents who live just outside the city, but apart from that, things could be substantially worse here.
Yeah, definitely.
But you told me earlier you didn't go to F&M. I have yet to find time. This is my first week back to work, so, a little bit of getting used to stuff. So I have not been out and playing Magic this week.
Yeah, we had a very lazy Magic week.
Yeah, I did find a place to go draft that's like not super far from me, and they do Wednesday night drafts, which means on Fridays I can go and do stuff with my wife.
Very nice.
So I guess we can just kind of get into it. Now that we've gotten the personal stories out of the way. So this week we're talking about a deck which is kind of an elephant in the room because we haven't talked about it yet. And that is the Dimir Flicker deck, which is currently doing pretty well.
Mike, please, Ratlock.
Fine, Ratlock.
No, just 6 to 1, half dozen of another.
Yeah.
This is a deck that we can largely attribute to the grinder Janice Stone, who has had the most success with the deck, and is largely responsible for most of the 5-0s with it.
Yeah, and I do want to point out that this is so the core of this deck is kind of this this hard lock combo, which has shown up in the past. For a while there was I forget the name and I could not find a list of it. There was someone who jammed the combo lock into teachings. Like
right, and so sorry, go ahead.
This was like pre-Drake days, so this is like a while ago.
Yeah. So this deck it seeks to establish the rat lock, which is Archaeomancer and Chittering Rats plus Ghostly Flicker. So on your opponent's upkeep, on a draw step, you target both of these, and they always are drawing the same card, and so you essentially lock them out of the game. That's where the name comes from. Like Mike said, it's appeared in decks in the past, but this deck plays sort of like if you smash teachings together with mono black control. Just in that it's got a much larger creature package with being able to back it up with blue.
Yeah, this very much has kind of taken the mid-range, slightly combo-y, but also very grindy role away from mono black. But let's just get into it. So we got 4 copies of Chittering Rats, 1, 2 black, 2/2. It's a rat. When it enters the battlefield, target opponent puts a card from their hand on top of their library. Just very, very quick, dry, and easy. And usually what this is it's a tempo play. At best, it's, a pseudo time walk if your opponent really needs the card or needs to draw a land off the top or something.
And this card is, of course, a staple in the mono black control decks that plays Gray Ogres for value.
Next up, we've got 4 Seagate Oracle. 2 and a blue. It's a 1/3. You look at the top 2 cards of your library. 1 goes to hand. 1 goes to the bottom of the library. This is kind of, I think, almost every blue combo deck uses this as a way to dig.
Yeah, I was also going to say this card, however, is a staple of teachings because it allows you to draw card filtering. It replaces itself and it allows you to draw the better of the 2 cards.
And more important, almost as importantly in teachings, it also survives even cards justices. So,
right. It's a 1/3, so it's a good blocker. Survives Evan Carr's Justice. Yeah.
Yeah, 1/3 is like a really premium body in this format. Like, sure, it dies to Lightning Bolt, but at the same time, like, we've got a lot of like 2Xs that are running around this format, so this just kind of keeps those at bay all day.
Also, like, how happy are you if your opponent spins premium removal on a 1/3 Lightning Bolt? You know, like you've already got the card. That's a 2-for-1.
Yeah, like it is good. So next up, we've got 2 copies of our Chaomancer, 2 and 2 blue. It's a 1/2 human wizard, and when it enters the battlefield, you get back an instant or sorcery from your graveyard to your hand.
And be honest with me here, what do you think of our Chaomancer as opposed to Mnemonic Wall? I almost feel like I like Mnemonic Wall a little bit better. Drake, the reason to play the Archaeomancer was to let you combo a turn earlier, but you're really not going to be deploying this these creatures to establish the lock until really you're already in control of the game. So it seems like the 0/4 might be a little bit better just because it also incidentally blocks more stuff. What do you think?
Well, let me hit you with this. So one of the big arguments for Mnemonic Wall is the 4 toughness versus 2, right?
Right.
Right now, Koldatha Boros is right up there at the top tier of decks. It runs 4 Galvanic Blasts. Like,
right.
I don't think we're currently in a meta where the difference between 4, where Bolt, I don't think is like the banner red removal spell anymore. And I think it's sort of shifted towards this 4 damage spell, and I think you're just willingly slowing yourself down a turn. And as you said, you're not under a huge amount of pressure to combo out like ASAP. But I think in this one, I think you'd rather be able to Archaeomancer with counter backup turn 6 if need be, than have to wait that additional turn to go for the counter backup.
All right, so it still comes down to mana cost. That's fair. I just wanted to know your opinion. I mean, obviously there are upsides and downsides for each. Another one I can think of is that Archaeomancer is UU, whereas Mnemonic Wall is just U. So I guess it largely depends on your personal preference even, and also like how you think your meta is. I don't think one is wrong over the other. So yeah, interesting, card discussion.
Yeah, and it is worth mentioning, like, the curve on this to like just curve out into the combo does get a little trickier with that UU in there. We'll talk about that more when we get down to the lands. But and then for the last 4 creatures, they're probably exactly what you guessed. They're 4 Muldrifters.
I mean, it's the best creature in the format, right?
Yeah, and flickering this in a ghost and using Ghostly Flicker on this and an Archaeomancer, that sounds like pretty good to me.
Yeah.
Moving on to the spells. First up, we've got Disfigure, 2 copies of it. Disfigure is an instant for a single black. Target creature gets -2/-2. Now, I just mentioned that there's a bunch of 2Xs running around. Disfigure hits a large chunk of this format.
Yeah, a lot of relevant 2 toughness creatures to kill. Just a very good all-around utility spell. Kills Delvers, even when they're flipped. Kills ninjas. Kills all sorts of fairies. Kills Flavoured Inspector. I could go on.
Yeah, like this is just a very, very solid card in this format, and sadly with Aether Revolt we did not get Fatal Push, so we don't get the almost strictly better. Although actually in our format we've got enough like 2 power things that cost a decent amount where Fatal Push might not actually be that great in our format.
I will tell you, Fatal Push does not kill Frogmite without the Revolt being triggered, which is interesting. Just something to consider.
I hadn't thought about that because I have my eyes on Fatal Push for Peasant Cube, where it's amazing, and a lot of people have talked about it in Modern and even Legacy.
It is amazing. It doesn't kill Muldrifters ever, which is kind of interesting as well. But so yeah, it might not be as good here because like. You asked me the question when that card first got spoiled. How many times how bad does Goyf have to get before people stop playing it? And the fact remains we don't really have like there's no Goyf in pop. I mean, you could argue, that 04 that gets Delirium
Moldgraph Scavenger.
But the closest analog is probably Carapace Forger. But the fact remains that that's not a very common thing to have happen. So I don't know. I don't think Fatal Push is good. Don't get me wrong. I don't know if it's gonna. I don't know if
it's weirdly it wouldn't be good in our format or as good.
I would say it's even passable. There's just a lot of high costing creatures that get played that it wouldn't hit.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Next on our spells list, 4 copies of Preordain, 1 blue sorcery, scry 2, draw a card.
I like Preordain.
Yeah, this is like pretty mandatory in a lot of blue decks where you want to sculpt your hand a little bit. It lets you look at a maximum of 3 cards. Sorry. If you like what you see, you can order them correctly so you can sequence a little bit better. It's just good.
Did I tell you I shelled out and got the fancy Preordains on Moto, the dual deck ones?
I am not a big fan of those.
I'm not either, but they cost more.
Is that your quantifier? Like instead of like, oh, I'm like a first foiling guy, it's I am a fan of the most expensive version of this card.
Not really. Really, what it is I like having the alternate art cards on Moto.
That's fair.
Is really the reason, because you can get all the foil ones as non-foils, and so that really appeals to me.
That's true. Next up, we've got a copy of Unearth. 1 black, return target creature with converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. And then it also has cycling for 2 generic. Unearth is just really good.
Yeah, it gets back your rats, which is really, really important. It gets back Oracle if you really need to. And it also, just draws you a card. Definitely good as a 1-up here, because if they kill all your rats, you want to be able to combo still. So
yeah, and that definitely is something. There's no redundancy for chittering rats in our format. So yeah, you definitely want to make sure you're able to get those rats back. I can see why it's only 1 though, because it only hits 8 out of the 14 creatures. So I can definitely understand why they're only playing the 1.
Some games you just won't need it.
Yeah. Definitely. Next, we got 4 Chainer's Edict. Sorcery, 1 and a black. Target player sacrifices a creature. Flashback for 5 and 2 black. Chainer's. It's just a staple. Like we can only talk about this so many times.
If you don't have him, get him.
Yeah, it's 2 pieces of removal stapled into 1. Although I will point out that if you don't have him, get him is mainly targeted towards paper people, I'm expecting. Because on Mitgo, they're like 10 cents or something.
Yeah, they're dirt cheap, and they're comparatively cheap in paper right now as well. They're on the decline. But it looks like they're sitting at about 6.
Yeah, give or take.
Not amazing, but I'm on Goldfish. When Battle for Zendikar came out, they were $1. That's crazy.
Yeah. That buyout hit him real hard.
Yeah.
Next on the list, another classic. Counterspell. Blue instant, counter target spell.
You should have these already.
Yeah.
They're cheap.
They're cheap. They go in most blue decks, and they kind of are the gold standard for a piece of counter magic.
They're a counterspell called Counterspell. What more do you want?
Yeah, they are the iconic. Like this is the lightning bolt of blue control spells.
Yeah, it's just so good. It's a catch-all. It really, it's one of those cards that needs no explanation.
Yeah, and here we are giving one anyway.
I know we're the worst.
Then we got 3 copies of Doomblade, and
all right. So this I could see you swapping Fatal Push for if it was a common.
Okay, I can see where you're coming with on that one. So Doomblade is 1 and a black to return non-black creature. How do we feel about this? Like, Gurmag Angler is not totally out of the format.
The reason Fatal Push be better is it costs less and it arguably hits more creatures. And like the big guys that I was talking about earlier, you could always Edict away or Disfigure. I mentioned Mold Drifter as an example. You can disfigure a Mold Drifter, no problem. But yeah, Doomblade has always, three of them seems a little high to me. That's all. It's always occupied sort of this weird space in the format where like black is a very strong color, and so people play a lot of black creatures. And so there are some matchups where this card is stone useless, just like does nothing. It's not really a very popular removal spell, or it wasn't until this deck, I suppose. I used to play Teachings List, and instead of running any Doomblades, in fact, they ran 4 copies of Diabolic Edict.
Yeah. So the upside of Doomblade is, it
kills almost everything.
It kills almost everything. It kills a lot of the big threats besides Gurmag Angler.
Right.
It hits everything in Affinity. It hits Ulamog's Crusher, who's kind of like the big boogeyman of the format.
It doesn't hit Germ Tokens, Mike.
Oh, that's true. It does not hit the 1/1.
Yeah. You totally want to use your Doomblade on that.
Yeah. If you're in that position,
I'm being pedantic here.
But Doomblade seems pretty good right now, especially with Mono Black kind of falling out of favor, and even in the mirror, like a good chunk of this deck is blue. And
yeah, kill the Archaeomancers. Don't worry about the Chittering Rats.
Yeah, like as long as you can keep them off one half of it, and especially the Archaeomancers, because there's only 2 of them, so they've got to find some way to get them back, which we will get to. Don't worry.
And looking a little bit over some of the rest of the top 8 decks here, this is the only deck with black in it, so it's probably fine.
Yeah, Blue-Black Alchemy's kind of fallen off a little bit. Probably in part due to this deck, I imagine.
Yeah.
Next up, we got Echoing Decay. 1 copy of it. 1 in a black, instant, target creature, and all creatures that share a name with it get -2/-2.
That's clearly very good against Boros tokens.
Yep.
But does find its way against other decks. Very good against, again, Frogmites. I love saying that. Also just very good against Delver. It's very good against a large portion of the field. That you having one in your main is not really that strange.
Yeah, and I think this deck's big weakness is like those super aggressive decks. So you really do want to have those early effective answers that are going to 2-for-1 your opponent.
Now I will say though, if you have a Mold Drifter and your opponent has a Mold Drifter, your Mold Drifter is going to die too.
That is true. That is something worth bringing up. Mold Drifter is kind of a bread and butter card in this format. All right, moving on. We got 1 copy of Exclude, 2 in a blue, counter target creature spell, draw card.
This card is great.
Yeah. So it's weird because minor tangent. This is part of a 2-card pair in Invasion when they were released with Repulse, and Repulse is an unsummoned cantrip for 2 in a blue. The weird thing about that, Exclude only costs 1 more than Remove Soul, which is why it's the good one.
Right. Repulse is great in certain limited formats, but not very good in Pauper.
It was amazing in Invasion. I was actually talking with a couple of people about favorite all-time limited formats, and I think IPA, the Invasion Planeshift Apocalypse, is one of my all-time favorites.
Yeah, it's one people remember fondly.
Yeah, first set with like a lot of like very modern looking card design and modern approach to like a limited format with color pairs. But also, yeah, Exclude, really good.
Holy guacamole! It's $6.50 online.
Yeah, Exclude is very pricey online for reasons I cannot explain because maybe we
has Invasion not been open that much.
Maybe we just haven't had like a flashback draft in a while for that block.
Yeah, that's normally the case.
Yeah. All right. Next up, we've got 2 copies of the card that makes the deck actually work. Ghostly Flicker. 2 in a blue, exile up to 2, I believe. Creatures, lands, or artifacts, and then return them to the battlefield. So this is your engine card, right?
It's actually not up to 2. You have to choose 2.
Oh, you have to pick 2, and I believe they have to be ones that you control as well.
Yeah, they have to be ones you control.
Okay.
Of course, everyone will remember this card from its Drake days because this was the enabler. The other half of the combo. Yeah,
because in that one you didn't really need much else to go off. You needed a Drake and an Archaeomancer.
Yeah.
But Ghostly Flicker, solid card. I've definitely played it in a bunch of fair decks that didn't abuse it and just used it to get ETB triggers.
Another great thing you can do with it, right, is you can evoke a Mole Drifter. Although I don't know why you're doing this, right? Because you have to have 6 mana. You can evoke a Mole Drifter and Ghostly Flicker it with the trigger on the stack and get like a land, and then you only really pay 2 mana for the flicker. You draw 2 cards, you still have an untapped land. Like there are other cute things you can do with it other than just like comboing. You can save a creature with it, which is also fairly good. If you have a Ghostly Flicker and an Archaeomancer on the battlefield, they basically can't kill it ever.
Yeah,
unless they edict it.
Yeah, that is a good point. The edict still will hit it because it'll still be on the stack when it gets back.
Right.
Last thing in this spell suite, 1 copy Reaping the Graves. Reaping the Graves is 2 and a black for an instant. Return a creature from your graveyard to your hand. Storm.
And I mean, this deck is so reliant on its creatures to get the job done. You really need them to sort of combo off and keep your opponent out of the game. So it's not weird to me to see 1 copy of Reaping the Graves here. If they kill all your Chittering Rats and all your Archaeoman, you have to get them back somehow. Also, You have so many sweet value creatures. This card is just going to be good.
Yeah, Reaping the Graves. Yeah, I played in what was it? The Grixis Metalcraft list, and Reaping the Graves for like 2 or 3 creatures was always just like, all right, I'm back in this. So pretty solid card. And also the fact that it's an instant makes it really great. Like if your opponent like plays out a ton of creatures out of nowhere, you can just go, all right, on your end step, Reaping the Graves for like 5. And yeah, it's just sweet. And lastly, we've got in the enchantment section, since I'm looking at a goldfish list, and they class those separately. Copy of Deadweight. 1 black, enchantment aura, enchanted creature gets -2/-2.
Straight up kills ATOGs.
Yep. It's basically a disfigure, but it will kill stuff that can pump itself until end of turn. Yeah, just, again, another kind of staple piece of slightly more situational black removal. Pretty solid card. No real way to abuse it in this deck, but, I guess you could, like, flicker it and Archaeomancer to move it to another target, I guess.
Oh, no, you can't flicker an enchantment.
Oh, no, that's right. You can't flicker the enchantments. Huh.
Arvex creatures lands, yeah.
Okay, so Deadweight's just a removal spell for ATOG.
Yes.
All right, so with our land base, we've got a copy of Barrenmoor and a copy of Lonely Sandbar, which are the black and blue cycling lands, respectively. They both cycle for 1 of the color that they produce. Got 4 copies Dimir Aqueduct. That's the black-blue Karoo or Bounce land. Produces a blue and a black. When it enters the battlefield, it's tapped, and you have to return another land you control to your hand. Or actually, you need to return a land you control to your hand, because you can play this turn 1 and bounce it. 6 islands, copy of Radiant Fountain, the colorless land that ETB gain 2 life.
And you can go Sleep Flicker that.
Yeah.
Gain 2 life.
And then we got 5 swamps. So pretty simple land base. Decent amount of duels. Pretty large amount of like ETB tapped things. Nothing really special about this though. Is there anything about this that catches your eye besides the fountain?
Honestly, this has stuck with me ever since I read it. I believe in one of Alex's articles, LSV quoted as saying Dimir Aqueduct makes any deck better. Just the fact that you can play Karoo lands should never be underestimated.
Yeah.
The worst thing you can do, obviously the dream is that you bounce the life gain land. The worst thing you can do is Dimir Aqueduct, tap for mana for Barrenmoor, Dimir Aqueduct it back to your hand and then cycle it. So they just give your lands way more utility. And I just wanted to hit on that real fast. I'm sure anyone listening to the show knows that because Karoo lands are everywhere in the format. But they're just so powerful.
Yeah, they also kind of like, if you need 4 mana in your hand, it means that you can keep a 4-spell, 3-land hand.
Yeah, they're so strong.
And that's always what I like. It's the fact that, like, yes, there's only 22 lands in here, but if you really need it, there's up to 26 mana available. in the deck.
Right. Exactly.
Moving on to the sideboard, we've got a pretty regular sideboard. Got copy of Dispel, blue instant counter target instant spell. 4 Hydroblast, blue, either destroy a permanent if it is red or counter a spell if it is red.
Format All-Star.
2 copies Relic of Progenitus, and this one kind of surprises me.
Relic is traditionally not what you want when you're playing a graveyard deck. Although I guess this is only like tangentially a graveyard deck. You kind of need your graveyard to combo, but presumably if you're using Relic, you've already cracked it before you're comboing off. So I don't think it's terrible. And obviously it has incremental value, which is why it might be a little bit better than Nihil Spellbomb.
Yeah, because you can definitely, keep what is that deck? Tortured Existence on a slow draw where they don't have a bunch of dredgers. You can keep them off stuff.
It's also much better against a deck like Stompy, where when the Young Wolf goes to the bin, if it's the only thing in there, you can just exile it and not have to waste a card.
That's true. Relic, I guess, I can definitely see why you would pick this over Nihil Spellbomb. Next up, we've got 3 copies Nausea, 1 in a black. Sorcery creatures get -1/-1 until end of turn. The card I wish was an instant the most.
Strictly better than Shrivel, for what it's worth.
I like Shrivel because it's got the Ulamog art, or no, it's Kozilek in the art.
I like Nausea because all of its art is goofy.
Yeah, the first
they do the exact same thing.
The first one's a folio, and then I think the second one's
these goblins like dive bombing, and then the last one, the EMA one, is the Stinky Foot card.
Oh yeah, I forgot that got a reprint in EMA. Huh.
It's just a dude taking off his shoe, and everyone giving him the stink eye, if you pardon my pun.
Well done. You got there. 3 copies of Stormbound Geist, 2 and 2 blue for a 2/2 flyer with can't block creatures without flying, and Undying. So when it dies the first time, it comes back with a +1/+1 counter on it, and if it dies with a +1/+1 counter on it, it doesn't come back.
Good in the mirror, good against Delver, very good with Ghostly Flicker.
Yeah, good against any sort of Edict deck as well.
Right.
Now the can't block anything but flyers is kind of a bummer, but I feel like it's more important just to get for other reasons. And then we got 2 copies of Deep Analysis, 3 in a blue, draw 2 cards, or target player draws 2 cards. And then Flashback for 1 in a blue and pay 3 life. Part of a cycle from Torment.
And I personally love this card. I think it's great in a deck like this. You're bringing that in the mirror. You're bringing that in against other slow decks. Just really helps you outgrind. I personally run, I think 3 between the main and the board in my pig trinket list.
Now I have a question.
Just a great card.
I have a question. Have you ever gotten to live the dream on this one and been able to mill someone out with Deep Analysis?
No, but I have had to discard Deep Analysis and then used it later.
Oh yeah, against the target player discards a card effects, Deep Analysis feels amazing.
Right, you're not really losing anything.
Yeah, I've definitely kept hands where Deep Analysis was the only legal target for a duress, got duressed, and then got into Flashback Deep Analysis turn 2 and just be up a card.
I still want to figure out what is that thing in the art, the original art, like the red-headed ape with 3 mouths. What is that?
So actually, this is a great thing that I actually know the answer to. And it relates to the flavor text. The creature in question is a Masticore from the card Masticore, which saw a ton of play during Urza's Masked Standard, and also I think Tempest Urza's Standard.
Oh, I'm looking at the original art for the card. I see it now.
And it was very, very powerful. It was very good for creatures back in the day, and if you look at the flavor text, it says this specimen appears to be broken.
Oh, because it was a broken card?
Yeah, that is the joke they're going for there.
Okay, I get it now. The reason I don't think I got that is Masticore is before my time. I'm used to Razormane Masticore, which is the dark steel version, and so I've never really taken a look at the original Masticore art. But now that you say that, I can totally see it.
Yeah, the original Masticore art's kind of goofy. Definitely a lot of nostalgia for me personally, but yeah, it's just a neat little art and flavor text joke that I enjoy.
Okay, I like it a lot now.
So moving one final note: the price of this deck online, $51.61 as of date of recording on Card Hoarder, and $52.41 as on date of recording for TCG Player. Is there anything in this list that doesn't see play in another deck?
One moment.
I'm just like looking through this.
No. Yeah. Literally every card in this deck you can play in other decks.
Yeah, I would say,
wow, that's rare.
Yeah, like looking through this, every single one of these I can point to another deck. Like chunks of it are mono black control cards, chunks of it are teachings cards, and
I think overall though, these are like even the creature base minus the chittering rats, these are just like blue black control cards.
Yeah. I think every single thing in this deck is, a solid buy, and most of the cost online is going to be that exclude and those hydroblasts in the side, I think, right?
Nothing right, yeah. I'm looking at $30 on the hydros and
and the unearth.
So one thing I like to point out, MTG Goldfish always gives you the version of the card that's cheapest. So the Masters Edition hydroblasts then must be cheaper than the EMA ones, which is interesting to me.
Interesting. All right, we're going to move into the maybe board. So with our, new version of the maybe board, we've been trying to talk about cards that could maybe go into the deck that we have been talking about this week. And I picked out two that I found, both of which have featured in 5.0 lists of this archetype. And they are Twisted Abomination and Soul Manipulation.
Those are good cards.
They certainly are. So Soul Manipulation, for those who might not remember, is one, a blue and a black. Choose one or both, counter target creature spell, and return a creature card from your graveyard to your hand. So this kind of gives the deck a little bit more in terms of recursion for creatures. How do you feel about it?
It's a raise dead staple to remove soul. It seems like it fits into the deck. My only thing would be what do you cut, right? You could cut, I guess, the unearth and the reaping the graves because those sort of fulfill the same kind of role. Reaping feels a little too good, I guess. I guess you could also maybe shave one of the exclude, and play it as like maybe a 2-of, cut the unearth and the exclude. That doesn't seem terrible to me.
So I'm actually looking at the list that I found with the Soul Manipulation in it, and it actually is also the one with the Twisted Abomination in it. And it looks like both Unearth and Exclude were cut.
Awesome. I'm incredible at this game. What can I say?
Yeah, you got it in one. This deck is also running some other different choices, but we won't get too deep into those.
Yeah, well, and these cards are more traditionally seen in the Dimir Alchemy list, because you can Soul Manipulation back the Twisted Abomination, which is also why it's so good if you mill it or Swamp Cycle it, which is a thing you could also do in this deck. I think this deck wants it a little less, but it is a nice little package.
So let me hit you with my argument for Twisted Abomination. So what does this rat flicker deck do if it loses half of the combo and can't get it back? For example,
exile.
Yeah, Fairy Macabre, Nihil Spellbomb, what have you.
There's not. I mean, it's Muldrifter beats, right? Like, yeah. As the list is configured that we looked at it, it's Muldrifter.
So maybe there's the argument for running Twisted Abomination so that you have sort of this option to win without having to have the combo.
Right.
There's also the fact that, it is a amazing blocker. The only thing that it does not block and eat if you have regeneration mana up is, infect creatures can eat through it, and Ulamog's Crusher.
Right.
So this thing, like, when I was running it in Alchemy, there was that 1 week where you were still on Affinity, and that thing just acted like a brick wall, right?
Yeah, couldn't swing into it, couldn't really do anything, had no evasion. So it was a pretty rough spot. The card, when it works, is insane. Even when it's not great, it's still pretty good. Even when it's not, what I meant to say by that is, even when it's not insane, it's still a fairly solid card.
Yeah, and it closes out games quickly. Like 5 power is a lot of power.
Yeah, so I could see that being a good backup plan. There is a whole argument in the community though about having a plan B. I don't know if you've ever engaged on that subject.
So I think I think I can see both sides of this argument, right? Having a main deck plan B does water down your plan A. Like you should generally only be running about 60 cards in your main deck. And, even if plan B is just 1 card, that's 59 cards to your plan A versus 60.
However, I will concede that this plan B works very well with the plan A. You can always swamp cycle this dude. This is a control deck. It wants to hit its land drops. So that's not really the end of the world. And in fact, looking through the land base, there looks like there's no real way. There's no evolving wilds or anything or a way to get a land anyway. So I could... Yeah, there's not. So I could conceivably see you playing it just to get the swamp at the very worst, and then it's not that bad. It's pretty good. And then like you said, it's a 5/3 wall.
Yeah, it's just, man, it's one of those cards that is so satisfying when it resolves. It's just like, I don't know how you're going to beat this. That's on you, buddy. See if you can figure something out.
I actually don't hate it in the list.
Yeah, I definitely, I'm willing to go on record as saying I probably love Twisted Abomination more than I should. I was also a pretty big proponent of using it as a, I guess, more quote-unquote real win con in teachings. And I don't know.
What do you mean? Evan Curse Justice is the best win con.
I mean, this is the period when, like, Curse was being used main deck as the win con. And
I'm not really a fan of that one.
Yeah, Curse's win con is just hellish. But with Soul Manipulation, as we mentioned the first time it got featured on the maybe board, just as a generic maybe board card, it does technically have 3 modes, right? Like, you can just use it as an overcosted remove soul. You can just use it as an overcosted raise dead, or you can get the full value out of it.
It's a very solid card. But you would have to replace it for the 2 things that we already mentioned, which is namely the remove soul that draws you a card, and the raise dead that's a little bit better than raise dead in most cases. In this deck though, you get back more creatures, obviously. So maybe you need to get back a Muldrifter. That's fine. Maybe you want to get back your Twisted Abomination. That's good too. It's just like its own little package that also plays very well in the blue-black colors.
Yeah. So I definitely think those are both things, you can try out if you want to have a slightly spicier.
And this option. Is really the strength. This really showcases to me the strength of blue-black. We're talking 3 distinct blue-black decks that all hold their own against each other, and it's largely a matter of personal preference in the meta. There's straight-up teachings. There's the Dimir Alchemy list. There's this list. These are all blue-black cards that share a preponderance of their cards with each other. But at the end of the day, their strategies vary enough that you can, in fact, call them 3 separate decks. That's just sort of the strength of the color combination in our format.
Yeah, I would definitely say blue and black have some of the deeper card pools. I wouldn't say because of that they're the most powerful. I would say, blue is definitely top 2, if not the best color in the format. But they definitely have like this very deep card pool that you can draw on, and you can kind of figure out what you want to do and go from there.
Well, look at this. You can be like, I want to play 4 Muldrifters. I'm going to play 4 Preordains. I'm going to play 4 Counterspells and 4 Chainer's Edicts. Where do I go from there?
Yeah, and from there on in, like, Like, I'm looking at this list that has the Twisted Abomination and the Soul Manipulation. It also has spicy includes like Agony Warp, Ghastly Demise.
Now that's interesting because those are cards traditionally more found in a straight up teachings list, or in the Dimir Alchemy list, and I haven't seen them so much in the Rat Lock version.
Yeah, I've become less and less of a fan of Ghastly Demise over time. I do still very much think it's a good card. It is much worse than Doomblade in a lot of situations.
Yeah, well, it really only plays well in the decks that are playing Angler, and then Angler is making it less good.
Yeah.
So because I'm also thinking of another blue-black archetype, the Dimir Delver deck. We want to turbo out an Angler and then have Ghastly Demises as backups, but then it's like, well, you're spending all of your graveyard cards on your Germog Angler, or your Sultai Scavenger.
I would like to point out something. Like, Angler Delver has kind of been absent from the metagame for a while.
Yeah, I know.
It definitely, like, was doing gangbusters at one point and then kind of dried up. So, interesting little side note there, but I definitely think like blue-black is one of those surprisingly deep card pools. You've got all sorts of stuff like Prohibit and, there's, I'm trying to think of other stuff off the top of my head. Victim of Night, Grasp of Darkness. Like,
solid cards.
Yeah, there's all sorts of options that you can take with these decks, and personally, I've run a lot of blue-black decks in Pauper. And I definitely appreciate the fact that, like, a lot of the time you can play two blue-black decks that on the surface look similar that play very differently, and still have fairly complicated decision trees. I don't think that they're nearly as complicated as some people would have you believe, but, like, for example, teachings, what do you want to do? You want to clear the board. And that's pretty much it, right? But I don't know. Try out a blue-black deck. Have some fun with it. That's my PSA for the week. But let's move. Let's take a sharp left here, and we're going to talk about a deck that you love and haven't played in a while, and why that is.
What is it?
I
know. I knew the answer. I thought you were going to say it.
It's Affinity. So, Affinity.
It's 8 on the top 8 decks.
Yes. By MTG Goldfish's calculations, as of today, the data recording, the 22nd of January, 2017, Affinity is the 8th most successful 5-0 list.
Which is still successful.
Yeah. I would like to point out it's only 8 wins less than the top deck.
Right, it's still in there. Don't worry, y'all.
Yeah.
We were talking about why that was before the show, and I think I personally think it has to do with the other decks that are doing really well. So
let's run through them. So in order from number 1 to number 8, we have, and again, according to MTG Goldfish, we've got Mono Blue Delver, Kuldotha Boros, Dimir Flicker, Marasatron, Stompy, Boggles, Is It Control, and Affinity.
Yes.
So run us through your hypothesis, Dr. Adrian.
Yada yada. JoJo jokes. Mono Blue Delver is not a bad matchup. It's just always going to be, it's back at the top of the heap. It's always going to be there. It was always destined to be there, to rise above. So I don't really know how to explain that one. I don't think that it's a really bad matchup. I think it's about 50-50, depending on Kuldotha Boros. I do not think is a good matchup. You basically have to fling combo kill them because they have so many blockers, and post board they have access to cards like Gorilla Shaman and Ancient Grudge. And like this is right now like the premier Gorilla Shaman deck. Some of these decks are running 2 or 3 of them in the sideboard, and just even Gorilla Shaman, which is the one I'm talking about, even if they Ancient Grudge 2 lands, like that's bad. You're going to lose that game probably.
And can we talk for a second about an interesting thing related to one of your comments? Gorilla Shaman. It's getting a reprint.
yeah, it's going to be in the decks, hopefully with that sweet art that we saw data mined several months ago. Am I getting rid of mine? No, I already bought them. I like the old ones.
And for note, it's down about a ticket already, and they have not actually entered. Have they entered the chests yet? Are they available?
I don't think so.
I don't know.
I'm unsure how much chests will actually affect the value of the card, and that's legitimate. I don't know how because I don't play other formats. I don't know how chests have affected the value of other high cost cards. I imagine Gorilla Shaman will take a larger hit simply because it is a common still. But I honestly cannot tell you how it's affected the cost of other high value cards.
So I don't think we have. I guess there is probably data out there that someone's compiled, but in Gorilla Shaman's case, how much of it do you think was people not running it in the board because they were $20 a piece?
So my theory is that people who want to grind and people who want to play the best deck, money is no object to people like that. I personally believe, being one of those people myself, if I want a card, I will buy the card. I don't really care how much it costs, especially not $20. That's that's how much you would spend on like a rare and standard, right?
Yeah.
If not more. So that's not really a factor for me. I personally own 3 copies of Gorilla Shaman. I spent about 15 each on them. So in my opinion, the people who are 5-0ing and they're winning, they already own this card. That being said, I think it will impact Affinity a little bit if it's more ubiquitous. Simply because it's kind of a no-brainer card. Like you play Gorilla Shaman on turn 2 or 3, and then you nuke their whole mana base. It's not a very skill-intensive card.
No, it's definitely a hammer.
I would argue that the reason that Gorilla Shaman will end up beating Affinity is because there will be more decks that have access to Gorilla Shaman as opposed to more people having access to Gorilla Shaman. Namely, the fact that Kuldotha Boros is super duper popular. People are already playing Gorilla Shaman in that deck, right? Yeah. So of course it's great against Affinity. I don't think that these numbers will shift too much just because more people have access to Gorilla Shaman. I think it's largely defined by what deck has access to Gorilla Shaman. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But there is an argument in Legacy that if more people could play Chains of Mephistopheles, the format would be a lot different because Brainstorm would be bad. But that's not the case on Moto, right? And I don't think Chains of Mephistopheles is prohibitively expensive on Moto.
I would have to really quickly look that up because I know what is it online? It's like online Chains of Mephistopheles is $3.91 versus about 100 times that.
Yeah, so clearly, being cheaper doesn't always mean that the card is just going to wreck. Like I don't think there's that many Chains of Mephistopheles decks in Legacy on Moto right now. So
yeah, I can definitely see where you're coming from on this. I just wanted to pick your brain on that because in the past we've definitely had discussions off the show where we've talked about the relative difficulty of acquiring that particular card and maybe that contributing to Affinity's success, just not against other 4-0 lists, but more just against the general public.
Now, I will say, if there is a deck out there that's already fairly budget, maybe having access to Gorilla Shaman will make it even better. But, look at the lists we're talking about right now. Marasatron, which isn't running Gorilla Shaman's already $60. Kuldotha Boros already about $60. Well, that includes the Gorilla Shamans, I suppose. So really the budget deck is already being overinflated by the card. I just think it's a matter of what deck is currently top tier that can run the Shaman as opposed to people are just going to start jamming Shamans into their decks.
That's fair. So with the Dimir Flicker, how do you feel about that deck as Affinity?
I think Teachings is a solid matchup. I don't see a reason why this one should be worse. And the plan's going to be pretty similar, which is to take out Fling combo and just try and win get underneath them before they can really establish this lock. This lock takes a while to establish.
Yeah.
Doomblade is a consideration that's extremely good against Affinity because it answers literally everything in the deck except for Germ Tokens, as we discussed. But it's a deck that doesn't really have a lot of game against artifacts, and so that makes me feel better about playing against it.
Okay. let's talk about the awkwardness of some of these sideboards that Marasatron has. Do you want to let people know what Shattering Pulse does?
Shattering Pulse is a 1 and a red for an instant. Destroy target artifact with buyback 3. So you could theoretically just nuke an entire Affinity player's board. It's basically the red cap size.
Yeah. As we've said before on the show, Affinity is a very powerful deck. It also has some of the most back-breaking, brutal answers to it.
So in the past, Tron was a terrible matchup because of Rugtron, because it's impossible to combo in the face of a Fingered Marauder. I honestly haven't been playing a lot of so I do not know where the Marasatron list stands. It is a control deck, though, and I feel like Affinity beats control decks pretty easily, in my opinion, mostly because we're able to deploy so many threats that are free, or we have so many cards that just don't matter, swarm the board. Frogmite, Mirror Enforcer is really hard for a control deck to answer.
So how much of that do you think is the fact that most control decks are in blue-black and have a hard time interacting with artifacts?
I would say pretty high.
Okay.
But looking at this Tron list, in the sideboard we have access to 2 Ancient Grudges and Moment's Peace and Shattering Pulse and Dispel. There's just a lot of good cards against Affinity in this list.
Hell, I think even Hydroblast has some level of play against you, right? With the flings, the flings, the Atogs, and the blasts.
Yeah, it just straight up kills all that stuff. So, again, I don't really have the data to go over Marasatron too much, but I do know it was terrible against Rugtron. Really terrible.
All right, fair enough. Stompy. I feel like Stompy's probably one of your better matchups in this top tier, right?
Yeah, I think Stompy's fine. My creatures are better than theirs. I have burn spells and they don't, and the board I have Standard Bearer.
Yeah, that pretty much sums up that. I don't think there's anything I could add if I wanted to. I have played that matchup from the Stompy side of things, and it's pretty miserable.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. We had fun. Of course, in the board, and I will, before I get ahead of myself, 4 Gleeful Sabotages. That's rough. Some people seem to draw all 4 copies every game. Not naming names. But post board it's rougher because that Gleeful Sabotage is so good.
Then we got Boggles.
Boggles is weird. Again, Standard Bearer. But I think we were talking a little bit before the show, and if they go turn 1 Glade Cover Scout, turn 2 Ethereal Armor, Rancor, turn 3 Armadillo Cloak, you can't win that game. How you gonna,
Yeah, you're just not going to be able to race them in an effective way just because of the pseudo lifelink granted by Armadillo Cloak.
Yeah, Affinity at main board doesn't really have a lot of meaningful answers to Boggles. In a 1-for-1 sort of way, you can make your Atog huge, block it, you lose a bunch of artifacts, but Galvanic Blast is not very good against the deck. Fling, if they have the life link, is not very good against the deck.
Yeah,
so
that all seems pretty legit.
But Standard Bearer, of course, will just absolutely destroy them.
Yeah, Standard Bearer is a hell of a sideboard card. Although some of them are now running Standard Bearer in their own sideboards.
But it is opponents.
Yeah.
So your Standard Bearer cannot trump the opponent's Standard Bearer.
Yeah. You don't get to be all right, I'm going to cast Rancor into your Standard Bearer, but I have one as well, so it's going to target mine.
Right. And a Standard Bearer, the text on it does just say, if an opponent plays a spell or ability, a flag bearer, that could target a flag bearer, that a player chooses at least 1 flag bearer. So... Oh, wait, hold on. Actually, it does trump it. I lied. Because it says if an opponent plays a spell or ability that could target a flag bearer in play, that player chooses at least 1 flag bearer as a target. So actually, no. So if you have out a Standard Bearer, I have been misinterpreting this card. If you've had a Standard Bearer and your opponent has a Standard Bearer and they play a spell, they have to target a flag bearer, which means they could target their own Standard Bearer. So I lied, everyone. Sorry about that.
Oh, that's an interesting little side note, though. The ability, Boggles can just go in on their own Standard Bearer if you both have one. Is kind of an interesting side note.
Yeah.
But I've got to feel like that's one of those One of those matches that on paper is probably closer to 50-50, but the matches feel much more lopsided depending on draws.
Yeah, I'm reading this card right? Like if you have a standard bearer and your opponent has a standard bearer, it only says they must choose a flag bearer. So I think that's right.
Hold on. Let me pull this up.
Chooses now
at least one flag bearer as a target. Let me just, yeah.
Checks out.
Oh, okay. So let me read the Oracle text. While choosing targets as part of casting a spell or activating ability, your opponents must choose at least one flag bearer on the table if able. So
yeah, it includes theirs.
All right. Last deck doing better than Affinity. Is it Control?
This deck is sweet. I like it. It's running Shattering Pulse, Annul, Curfew. Curfew seems really good against Affinity.
Does it?
Well, if you had an ATOG and they curfew you.
True.
Like, that doesn't seem bad. It doesn't target, which is also interesting. Also, Shattering Pulse.
Yeah. Shattering Pulse is it's a hell of a card.
And also just, going through the main board here, Essence Scatter, Remove Soul, those are good against Affinity. Dispel is good against Affinity. Flame Slash is good against Affinity. They have a pretty strong main board suite. So I could imagine it being a little bit hard if you don't get an absolute net draw against them.
Also, out of the sideboard, they've got a null. Counter 1 blue instant, counter an artifact or enchantment spell.
Yeah, and that countering a Mere Enforcer that way is just, it's great. That's good for them.
Yeah, and they're also running Flame Slash main board, which does kill everything except ATOG. So I would definitely...
Even then, yeah.
Yeah,
like sack 2 things.
So basically what we're getting at here is the rise of some red decks and some very low to the ground aggro decks is kind of causing some flagged numbers for Affinity, right?
Right. And of course, as we mentioned before this discussion, it's all very close. I think you said the difference is 8 5-0s between Mono Blue Delver and Affinity.
Yeah.
That's not a lot.
I'm looking through here, and so in order, Mono Blue 28, Kuldotha Boros 27, Dimir Flicker 26, Marasatron 24, Stompium Boggles both at 22, Is It Control 21, Affinity 20.
Yeah, it's all pretty close.
Yeah, that said, between those 8 points, you're talking about almost 3% of the metagame difference, but it's just interesting to see that Affinity, which for so long was in the top 4 in terms of statistics, has fallen a little bit.
Yeah.
And you've even kind of let go of it, right? When was the last time you actually played that deck?
It's been a while. I've been maining Kuldotha Boros for the past several weeks at F&M. I just like the deck so much. Yeah, I mean,
I've played with it. It feels goofy every time. It's just oh, okay, I'm just gonna swing for lethal now.
And a good goofy.
Yeah, and I definitely the interesting thing about Kuldotha Boros is, while it's definitely not in my wheelhouse, it's not one of those decks that ever feels amazingly unfair or anything. It just feels okay, they had it, right?
Yeah.
And it's definitely a deck that the format can handle, which I think is important. But there you go. That's what happened to Affinity. It's just kind of languishing a little bit right now in the face of... also noticeable, Burn has been doing okay again. And they do have some pretty decent answers in their deck. Rugtron still does exist. There's also the green-red Tron. Have you seen that one?
I have not. What is it running?
So it runs a Fierce Empath suite with Fangren Marauder, Accomplished Automaton, which is seeing play in 5-0s.
Don't talk to me and my tiny son ever again.
Yeah, exactly. Wretched Griff and Crusher. And then it gets a crop rotation package. It's got a Rolling Thunder in there. It's got the full Stars, Spheres, Maps trio. It's got some kind of spicy little crop rotation targets a Colony Garden and Sajiri Step.
Yeah. So it's a kind of land based deck.
Yeah, not nothing too dreadfully spicy, but definitely some neat stuff in it. And that their sideboard answer for you is Ancient Grudge, and oh man, they're playing Reap and Sow on the board. That is sweet. For those who aren't familiar, Reap and Sow, 3 and a green, choose one, destroy target land, or search your library for a land card, put it into play, shuffle your library.
You and your jankety jank.
And it has Entwine for 1 and a green. So for 6 mana, you get to blow up a land and search up any land and put it into play untapped.
I really like the Wretched Griff Accomplished Automaton combo.
Yeah. I mean, hell, just the fact that like you can hard cast Griffs makes it decent, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Also, crop rotation is pretty sweet. So yeah, it's a sweet little deck.
But I guess the big thing is like red is now a serious player, and as a result, numbers for Affinity have been flagging a little. That and subtle meta shifts. Hopefully, one of these days you'll get to play that deck again because.
I will.
You got it all foiled, deck. Right?
Yeah, man, it's a good deck. It's my homeboy.
Yeah. All right. I think we're probably pulling up on time here. Let me just check. Yeah, we're just over an hour. Adrian, you want to take us out?
Yeah, thanks for joining us today, everyone. Check below this video or the description of this podcast for details on where to find us. We'd like to remind you that if you're listening to this on a platform with reviews, they're always appreciated as they boost our visibility. If you've got a deck list or an idea for a topic, feel free to contact us either via our website or by emailing us directly at colorcommentary@gmail.com. Special thanks to Pat's Games and L. Till next week, this is Adrian and Mike, and we are signing off for Color Commentary.